The first bell of Ridgeway Technical Academy always rang like a warning, metal, cold and hollow. Students rushed through the courtyard in scattered waves of chatter and energy. Lockers slammed, sneakers slid across polished floors, and every hallway smelled faintly like floor wax mixed with cheap cafeteria pancakes. But the moment he walked in, everything shifted. His name was Caleb Rivers. 19 years old. Tall, lean, and built with the quiet strength of someone who didn't ask for space, he created it. His hair was still damp from the early morning run, and instead of a trendy backpack, he carried a battered military duffel slung over one shoulder. He didn't scan the school nervously the way new transfers did. His posture was straight, precise, like every movement had already been rehearsed. Students noticed immediately. Someone near a vending machine whispered, "Who's that?" Another replied, "No clue, but he doesn't look like he wants friends." Caleb wasn't here to impress anyone. He wasn't here to blend in either. He was here because he didn't have a choice. Ridgeway was the last school that would take him after the incident at his previous one. The kind of incident that magically disappeared from files, but not from whispers. Caleb walked toward his first class, ignoring the looks, ignoring the murmurs. His footfalls were soft, controlled, not too fast, not too slow. He moved like someone constantly calculating exit routes. Like danger was routine. Across the courtyard, leaning on a bench like it was a throne he owned, stood Derek Maddox. 20 years old. Star athlete. Golden boy of the school. And captain of a group everyone called the Falcons. Derek didn't run the school because he was strong. He ran it because everyone believed he was. He noticed Caleb the way a wolf notices another predator entering its territory. "Who's the military reject?" he muttered. His friend Jace chuckled next to him. "Probably another freshman who thinks being silent makes him mysterious." Derek's eyes narrowed. "Nobody walks into my school like that." He stood, pushing off the bench, and began moving through the hallway crowd with his group trailing close behind him, like storm clouds following wind. Caleb reached his classroom and sat near the far corner, facing the door. His chair choice wasn't random. He could see entrances, windows, and every person who walked in. The classroom filled quickly. Students talked and joked as they sat. Caleb removed a slim notebook from his bag and flipped it open, blank pages, except for a single handwritten quote on the inside cover. "Control is stronger than force." He tapped a pen against the page rhythmically, not impatient, calibrating. A voice behind him broke through. "Yo, new kid, what's your name?" Caleb didn't turn. "Caleb." The boy snickered. No eye contact, too good to look at us. Caleb answered calmly, still writing. "Just focusing." The boy scoffed and leaned back. Across the room, Derek and his crew entered. Their noise immediately swallowed the room, laughs, high fives, loud comments that demanded attention. Everyone else naturally lowered their voices. Everyone except Caleb. Derek noticed. He walked right past the desk of the student he usually flirted with and stopped directly beside Caleb's table. Caleb didn't look up. "You in my seat." Caleb paused his writing, slowly lifted his eyes, and simply replied. There were no names assigned. A few students froze in anticipation. Derek smirked. "You must be new, you don't get how things work here." Caleb's gaze held steady. "I don't respond to how things used to work." That answer hit the room like a dropped stack of textbooks. Nobody talked back to Derek. Nobody. Derek leaned closer, voice dripping with ego. "Listen carefully. I run this building. Teachers look the other way. Students follow when I want something." Caleb cut him off quietly. "Then learn to earn it." The room fell silent. The tension, thick enough to cut, with a rusted pair of scissors. Derek straightened, jaw tightening. But before anything could happen, the teacher walked in. "Seats, everyone." Caleb returned his focus to his notebook as if nothing happened. But Derek did not return to his seat. Not until the teacher cleared his throat pointedly. And when he finally walked away, people noticed the unusual expression on Derek's face. He didn't look amused. He looked threatened. Class dragged on. Caleb absorbed the lesson effortlessly, answering questions concisely when called, not showing off, not trying to impress, just responding. Every time he spoke, Derek's irritation deepened. At lunch, Caleb sat alone at a small table near the windows, not isolated, just intentionally distant. He took slow bites of his food, calm, focused, until a shadow fell across his tray. Derek. Two of his falcons stood beside him, arms crossed. Derek dropped his hand onto Caleb's table, leaning in. "You talk big for someone eating alone." Caleb finished chewing, set down his fork. "I prefer peace over noise." A low laugh from Jace. Derek's smile turned predatory. "You're gonna learn something real fast, Rivers. Around here, peace belongs to the person strong enough to take it." Caleb met his eyes evenly. "Strength isn't volume." The table fell silent. For a second, Derek didn't move. Then he picked up Caleb's bottle of water, twisted the cap off, and tilted it toward Caleb's tray. His crew laughed. But Caleb moved. Not aggressively, just decisively. He placed his hand on Derek's wrist. Light grip. Firm boundary. And Derek froze. Not because of pain, but because Caleb's touch wasn't hostile. It was controlled, the kind of grip only trained people used. Derek's expression shifted, just for a moment, into something like confusion. Caleb spoke low enough only Derek could hear. "You push because you expect people to move." "I don't move." He released Derek's wrist. Derek stepped back, heartbeat stuttering in his chest, not from fear, but from unfamiliarity. Nobody ever disrupted his dominance without aggression. Caleb picked up the water bottle, set it on Derek's tray instead, and stood. "Enjoy the drink." He walked away. Caleb didn't turn around. Didn't check if Derek followed. He didn't need to. Because he knew something Derek didn't. Bullies don't keep escalating because they're strong, but because they can't stand losing control. And Derek Maddox had just lost control. But what Caleb didn't know was that Derek wasn't planning a confrontation. He was planning a public humiliation, one that would involve the maintenance courtyard. Pressurized water. By mid-afternoon, Ridgeway Technical Academy felt smaller. The classrooms emptied, the cafeteria buzz faded, and hallways echoed with empty footsteps. Most students were tucked away in clubs, labs, or the library. But behind the North Gym, a different kind of storm was brewing. Derek Maddox and his falcons moved with purpose, their laughter muted under the shadow of the maintenance shed. A large industrial water sprayer sat coiled against the wall, its metal nozzle glinting under the sun. Mason and Jace were adjusting the pressure valves, making sure every detail was perfect. "This is gonna be legendary," Mason said, smirking as he tested the stream. "He won't know what hit him." Derek paced slowly, his hands tucked into his hoodie pocket. He wasn't just thinking about humiliating Caleb, he was thinking about teaching him a lesson, one that everyone at Ridgeway would remember. "Make sure it's full blast," Derek ordered. "I want everyone to see him soaked, every last drop." He glanced at his crew. "And don't miss, this is payback for the cafeteria stunt. I won't let some transfer act like he owns this place." The Falcons laughed quietly. Their confidence was solid. They were the kings of Ridgeway's schoolyard hierarchy, but none of them noticed the calm shadow slipping along the side of the gym. Caleb had taken the long route, careful to remain unseen. He knew Derek's patterns, his movements, the subtle signs of overconfidence. He had observed them long enough to predict what they were planning. "Perfect timing," Derek said, noticing Caleb emerging from behind the corner. "Let's welcome him properly." Caleb didn't speed up. He didn't hesitate. He simply adjusted his duffel bag, walked straight toward the shed, and let the quiet confidence in his gait radiate like a challenge. He didn't speak. He didn't react to the whispers from the students who had gathered on the far end of the gym windows. Every step was measured, deliberate, like a chess player moving a piece in a game everyone else thought they understood. Mason tightened his grip on the sprayer. Jace and Derek exchanged nods. The pressure was ready. Derek leaned forward, grinning. "All right, let's see if that stone-faced transfer can handle some real power." The first spray hissed. Water arced toward Caleb with crushing force, gleaming in the sunlight. It hit him square in the chest. The falcons laughed. The sound was loud, cruel, echoing off the walls of the shed. But Caleb didn't flinch. Not an inch. Not a single reaction. The laughter faltered. Mason's grip faltered. Derek's eyes narrowed. "How is he not?" Derek muttered, his voice low and tense. Caleb took one deliberate step forward. His shoes hit the wet concrete with a quiet splash. Then, in a single smooth motion, he pivoted and redirected the nozzle with a precise kick. The water shot straight back, drenching Derek's hoodie and sending Mason stumbling sideways. The falcons scrambled, slipping in the puddles they had created. A stunned silence fell over the courtyard. Caleb's calm gaze never wavered. Every motion was efficient, precise, like he had already played out 1,000 possible scenarios before stepping through the gym doors. "I suggest you be careful with what you start," Caleb said softly, voice low but controlled, carrying over the rising tension. "Some lessons aren't fun." Derek lunged forward in frustration. He tried to grab Caleb, but the transfer student sidestepped, pivoted, and used Derek's momentum to spin him off balance. One elbow across the shoulder, one sweeping kick, calculated, clean, controlled, each movement designed to neutralize, not injure. The falcons hesitated. Mason tried to recover the sprayer, but Caleb stepped forward, gripping the valve with precise force, shutting it down in a single motion. The hose went limp, the nozzle swinging uselessly at their feet. Silence returned, broken only by dripping water. Students watching from the windows whispered, jaws dropping. No one had expected the quiet transfer to dismantle Derek's public humiliation so effortlessly. Derek's chest heaved. Pride and frustration warred visibly across his face. He had never experienced this before, a confrontation without anger, without fear. Someone operating purely on control. "You think this is a game?" Derek spat, shivering from wet clothes and rage. "You got lucky." Caleb tilted his head slightly, calm as a still lake. "Luck doesn't teach control. You'll understand that eventually." The message hit harder than any shove, any insult. Derek's fists clenched. Mason and Jace stepped back, exchanging uneasy glances. Derek tried to regain dominance by yelling, pushing, or swinging, any action that had always worked before, but Caleb moved like water around rocks. Every attempt failed. The courtyard had transformed. What had been a simple trap to humiliate a newcomer became a lesson in discipline and presence. Each student watching could feel it, the quiet power of someone who didn't need to prove themselves to anyone. Derek's face went from angry to incredulous. For a moment, he looked smaller, fragile even, under the weight of Caleb's calm. He realized something crucial. No one ever pushed Caleb because he was weak. No one ever laughed at him because he would react. Caleb bent down, picked up his bag, and slung it over one shoulder. He didn't chase Derek. He didn't gloat. He simply walked toward the exit of the courtyard, leaving behind a puddle-strewn battlefield and a group of boys who didn't know how to react. The falcons, soggy and humiliated, tried to maintain composure. Mason muttered, Maybe we overdid it." Derek didn't respond. He stared at Caleb's back, something unfamiliar flickering in his chest. Respect, fearless respect. But Derek's pride wouldn't let this go. That night he began plotting something that couldn't just humiliate Caleb. Something that would test him physically. And this time, it wouldn't be water. Caleb didn't know it yet, but the real challenge was about to begin. That night, Ridgeway Technical Academy felt unusually quiet. The hallways, usually alive with gossip, were now empty, but Derek Maddox wasn't sleeping. He couldn't. His humiliation in the courtyard burned through him like wildfire. Every image of Caleb standing calm, unaffected, replayed in his mind. Derek didn't just want revenge, he wanted proof that Caleb was vulnerable, that beneath the calm exterior was someone who could be rattled, and he had a plan. Not water, not a public spectacle, something that would force Caleb to act under pressure, under control, under real threat. By the next morning, Derek had transformed the old gym's climbing wall into a personal obstacle course. The Falcon crew helped him rig it with challenges, ropes, bars, balance beams, all designed to test coordination, endurance, and reaction. The message was clear: whoever failed would be humiliated in front of the entire school. Caleb arrived at school, unaware of Derek's preparation. He walked with the same calm gait, his bag slung over one shoulder. Inside, he had no idea what was waiting for him. And that was exactly how Derek wanted it. By lunch, the entire gym was cordoned off. Students gathered, whispering, phones at the ready. Derek stood at the starting line, arms folded, smug. Mason and Jace lingered near the ropes and bars, checking everything twice. When Caleb entered, silence fell. Unlike the previous day, Caleb didn't stop or glance around. He simply approached the gym, scanning the setup with the kind of precise awareness that made observers uneasy. Derek stepped forward, voice loud enough for the crowd to hear. "So the stone-faced transfer thinks he's untouchable. Let's see how he handles real challenge." Caleb didn't flinch. He replied quietly, steady, calm. "Real challenge doesn't need an audience." A murmur ran through the crowd. Derek smirked, thinking he'd already won by making this a spectacle. The first obstacle was a balance beam over a shallow pit. Derek motioned for Caleb to start. Every student leaned forward, anticipating a stumble, a slip, or some sign of uncertainty. Caleb stepped onto the beam. His movements were deliberate, almost meditative. He paused, measured the distance, and then walked smoothly across, maintaining perfect posture. The crowd gasped, and Derek's smirk faltered slightly. Next came the ropes. High, swinging, unpredictable. Most students would panic halfway, grabbing wildly, but Caleb's hands moved with precision. He read the sway, adjusted his momentum, and climbed gracefully. Every swing and step executed with controlled strength. Mason whispered under his breath, "How is he?" "Forget it," Jace muttered. "He's not human." Derek realized the stakes were escalating. This wasn't just a test of balance. It was a test of pride, and pride, for him, was everything. At the final obstacle, a horizontal bar dangled over a mat. The challenge: swing, release, grab the next bar, and land precisely on a marked spot. Derek grinned, confident that Caleb would falter here. Caleb approached, glanced at the setup, then at Derek. His eyes didn't show fear, annoyance, or arrogance, just calculation. "One move at a time," he muttered, almost to himself. He swung from the first bar, momentum perfect. His body adjusted mid-air. He released, caught the next bar, every motion smooth, every landing precise. When he finally landed on the mat, he was perfectly centered. Silence, absolute silence. Even Derek's crew looked stunned. Derek clenched his fists. He stepped forward, voice low but sharp. "Not bad for a transfer." Caleb didn't respond. He simply adjusted his bag, shoulders relaxed, breathing steady. Then Derek made a mistake, the one he would regret. "You're impressive, but impressive doesn't mean untouchable," Derek said, stepping closer, invading Caleb's space. Caleb turned his head, gaze steady. "Control is untouchable." It wasn't just words, it was a challenge, a declaration, a lesson Derek hadn't expected to hear. Derek lunged forward, attempting a shove. Caleb sidestepped, letting Derek's momentum carry him forward. One gentle pivot of his wrist, and Derek stumbled, landing on the mat in a heap. The crowd erupted, not in laughter, but in awe. The Falcons froze. Jace whispered, half scared, half amazed. "Is he real?" Caleb didn't gloat. He extended a hand, steady and calm. "You're bigger than me, faster than me, but control is stronger than force. You'll learn that." Derek stared at the hand, the words, and the unshaken composure. For the first time, he felt humility, a feeling he had never known. The bell rang, slicing through the tension. Students began to leave, whispering about the transfer student who had dominated without anger. Derek remained on the mat, drenched in sweat, chest heaving, and face red from both exertion and embarrassment. He glanced at Caleb, still calm, still collected, still completely unshaken. For a moment, Derek realized something important. Strength isn't about intimidation. Strength isn't about dominance. Strength is about control. Mason nudged him. Maybe we back off." Derek didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Caleb, really looked. And for the first time, he felt respect, mixed with a twinge of fear. Not fear of harm, but fear of truth. Caleb slung his bag over one shoulder, glanced once at Derek, and walked out of the gym. Every student watching knew the lesson. Not because Caleb had shouted, not because he had fought, not because he had humiliated, but because he had remained calm when chaos tried to pull him under. By the end of the day, Ridgeway Technical Academy was a different place. Derek Maddox, the king of the school, had learned humility. Caleb Rivers, the quiet transfer, had earned unspoken respect. No one cheered, no one laughed, but in the quiet corners of the school, students whispered, "That kid, he's different." And that difference, it wasn't arrogance, it wasn't rebellion, it was something far more powerful: discipline, control, and the unshakable calm that defines real strength. Caleb didn't need to dominate. He didn't need revenge. He simply walked through the storm, unbroken, leaving everyone else to catch up.